with Punk, this is sort of coming off from Punk. Is who's the? And I hate to use the phrase. It's a bit modern, but toxic person that you ever booked that you continue to book because he was good for business, but just a nightmare to deal with.
Oh, that was a question. I read this about an hour or two ago. I never booked toxic people. I tried not to. They may have turned out to be toxic after they got there, but I don't even remember that because toxicity is a killer just by itself. I don't think if somebody's going to come in and they're that toxic, they're going to overturn or cause a big rumble in your dressing room. It's not worth the habit there because what you've added is not only a headache for you, but it's a headache for your talent because they don't want to be upset and something going on and some guy causing a bunch of problems. No, I never would book somebody like that. And the ones who did book people like that, I think they were more or less forced into it because the business being so bad, or they didn't own the company. They were just a booker and were told to book this person. Uh, some guy could be a great guy, but when he walks in the dressing room, if he causes a feeling of unease in the dressing room, well, he's toxic. And guys can be toxic. Say I'm wrestling you, and all of a sudden I say, I don't want to wrestle James. I just don't. And they say why? I said, well, I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. Well, the booker has to say if he wants to keep me. Now he's got to kind of appease me a little bit. And I said, well, I'll work with Jim. Okay, and then he writes Jim's name, but what's that do you? That doesn't do any good for you. That's what Shawn Michaels basically was doing to the Harris boys. Now, Vince may have wanted to put him in a match with him, and he didn't want it, so he would and he cost them money. Of course, in the end, it may have cost it didn't go to that level where they would have beat the crap out of him, but it would have ended up that way had it progressed farther along the lines it was going.
I've just thought of this now, and I was struggling to think of his name for the last 2 minutes. Did you ever have any interactions or even maybe book Thunderbolt Patterson? I always heard he was difficult to deal with.
Well, I was in a territory with him when I was just started. It was the Atlanta territory. I had just started. He was coming off a run in North Carolina where he was super over, and he came to Georgia and he got over, but he told the promotion what to do. They didn't tell him what to do. He was telling them, but along those same lines, he was actually drawing money. Now, this is in the days that they actually sold tickets. The Stone Age system of doing business, selling tickets. But he would go to those towns and they would sell out. You put him against them, and we talked about Ox Baker, I think, a time or two. You put him against that Ox Baker, and the place would just sell out. And he had the people. He had them in the palm of the hand. That's where he had them. He could, and the old saying about wrestling is, he could pick them up and he could set them down at will, and he could do that. But I think he was toxic, and he caused a lot of problems. But in somebody being toxic, if you draw money by putting him over all the time, eventually that gets old. If the people don't think that he's in some kind of danger, well, it's more the same. Till you want to beat him up and get some heat on a heel that he can go back and beat up. And I think he had some disagreements with the booker in Atlanta at the time, who was Tom Ernesto, who was one of the assassins. Now this is years and years and years ago, before you were even born. So what I try not to do is talk too far back, because people can't even relate to what happened 20 years before they were born or 10 years before they were born. But I remember Tom used to say things about him like, he was difficult to deal with and he didn't want to deal with him, but he had no choice. because he was the only one who could draw money at the time. And if he drew money, everybody made money. If he wasn't on the card, you know, you didn't lose money, but you didn't make it either.
He's one of the only wrestlers I've ever heard of before WCW at the end of it where he sued promoters for like poor working conditions. I don't even know if he won the lawsuits or not. Did you ever hear any of those?
No. Well, I did know he sued. I didn't know what he sued about.
There's poor working conditions and sued for racial discrimination. And as a result was racial discrimination, then the next word is blacklisted from wrestling.
I cannot believe you said that. That's funny as hell. Blacklisted.
I mean, blacklisted for racial discrimination. What fantastic wording.
Yeah, he was a shit disturber. See, the first territory I worked for was in Atlanta, and it was Ann Gunkel and her husband Ray. They owned the territory. Then I was talking about Ox Baker. Ox Baker had the heart punch. So one night in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm riding with Ox. Ox gives him the heart punch. Boom. After the match, and they take him out. Of course, he goes back to the dressing room. He's fine. He's up taking a shower. And guess what happens? He has a heart attack. Boom, falls over. Now, they have pushed this heart punch for months and months and months. And he finally, the storyline was he killed the top baby face in the company, or maybe not then, but the owner, he kills him with the heart punch. So that's when, and we'll get to this maybe a little later, and they were all bounded together to get Ann out of the promotion. And Ann says, no, screw you. You're not going to screw me out of this. So she started her own company and took most of the talent from the Atlanta territory and started her own. Then they had to start a different company with all newcomers from from Florida and Alabama and some neighboring states. They had to start a competing company. So it was wild there for a while, but Ox and Thunderbolt went with Ann Gunkel, and that's why he really got cantankerous to work with then. So, but I did know that he sued for racial discrimination. Why? I don't know, because he was the one making the money. He made a lot more money than I did. And I don't know. I don't think there was any, I didn't see any racial discrimination other than he was in the main event every day. So what was he basing that on?
I don't know. Maybe he was basing it on he fancied getting paid. Who knows?
Well, he was getting paid more than everybody else.
and
they could prove that.
That'll be something for me to research for a later one, I think.